So this year, we've invited Angela Larraguibel to be our guest speaker. Angela. Where's Angela? Oh, there you are. I'll just say a few remarks before. So Angela worked at the Record from 1998 to 2011 in the advertising department. She first started at the Record in 1990 as a part-time worker while still at Cameron Heights Collegiate in Kitchener. Yeah, so I talked to Angela about some of her work at the Record, and strangely enough, she explained what she did, and I always thought, okay, people sell ads at the Record and they magically appear in the pages of the paper, but I had no idea how that happens. So Angela said she was she managed key accounts, and that was a bit of a mystery to me. But really, I won't go on about what she did, but she was kind of, people would sell ads and then they'd contact Angie and she'd take it from there and made sure that everything went tickety-boo and got into the Record. Anyway, so she did that and moved up in the ranks, and in 2011 she moved on to Communitech, where she remains to this day and has done quite well there, moved up. And Communitech, if you're not familiar with this organization, it represents local tech companies in the area. Very important. They play a very important role in promoting and advocating for and nurturing new startups. And Communitech was started by some illustrious people, including Jim Balzilli and Tom Jenkins were among the founders, two of the best-known tech entrepreneurs in Canada. Anyway, without further ado, would you please give a warm welcome to Angela Larraguibel.
I'm so short. Hold on. Oh, and now I broke it. Sorry. Okay, there we go. Good evening, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here tonight. I just wanted to acknowledge that there's probably a little bit of nepotism that snuck in the speaker selection, since Al Anderson is my father and he serves on the Phoenix Club committee. Nevertheless, I'm really happy to be here with you. I suggested it. Perhaps it should have been Kevin Crowley, since I believe he just had a book that was published. So, well done, Kevin. So in reflecting this evening and preparing for my remarks tonight, gave me a chance to kind of think about my 21 years at the Record. I did start in 1990, and way back then when I started, it was so long ago, the ladies that I was sitting at the table with were reflecting on some of the dress code rules. When I started, I was told that it was not appropriate for young ladies to wear slacks to work, that we were to wear dresses or skirts. I know, kind of hard to believe. Can you imagine trying that these days? You wouldn't get away with that. But anyway, I thought that I would share some of my lessons learned in my 2 decades at the Record, and then a few lessons that I've learned since then. So the first thing that I reflected on was all the good friendships that I made over the years. We made some friendships there that have lasted over 30 years, and I was very lucky to cross paths with some really amazing human beings. Then we've celebrated marriages and births of children and graduations and birthdays and new jobs and kids off to university and so much more together. And it was a very deadline-driven environment, but we managed to have a good time. Does anybody remember Curtis Glode? Yes? So I'm going to share a slightly embarrassing story about Curtis Glode that involves myself and Curtis Glode. He once asked me, could he borrow a pair of my winter boots, and I foolishly did not ask why. So I gave him those boots. Emily knows this story, so she's laughing. Curtis had brought a fart machine into work and enlisted a female employee to put my boots in a stall and then had the fart machine going. But they were my boots, so of course everybody thought it was me. So lesson, always ask when somebody asks, to borrow your food or to borrow your boots, why they want them. The second lesson I learned was around time management. We often worked on multiple deadlines, and what a life skill it was to be able to work under that tight deadline. And what an adjustment it was when I moved away from that type of environment. But I still feel a sense of urgency in my work. And I think once you've dealt with those daily deadlines, it helps you. You can figure out how to work under pressure. So when I first started in classified, we had the flashing red light, if anybody remembers that. When there were calls waiting, the light would start going, right? And you would start typing faster and your heart rate would start to go up. Ken Becker's doing this because he remembers, yeah. But to this day, I can type exceptionally quickly, so thank you, classified, for that life skill. The next lesson I reflected on was that you can never underestimate the power of your network. Every job I've ever gotten was because of people I knew that advocated for me. And what a gift it is to have those connections. So I worked for the Family Drive-In. Thank you, Mom and Dad. I taught ballet where I had previously taken lessons. I waitressed and worked at a factory job, both jobs via intros from a friend. And I got the interview at Communitech because of a recommendation from Susan Strickler and Emily Lowther. I promised Emily and Susan I would mention them. So thank you, Susan and Emily. So the lesson here is to be kind to others and pay it forward if you can, and help those in your network as much as possible. Of course, when I joined the Record, that network was my family. My mother, my father, and my brother had all worked there, and the hiring managers at the Record no doubt took that into account. And over the years, our family benefited immensely from connections with our Record family. We spent many summers at Alfie's Cottage, rented in Point Clark. We attended Record picnics, memories of May parties, Christmas parties, kids parties, time spent with the Wilsons and the Murtaughs and many, many more good folks. And then when I was out and grown on my own, coworkers offered up furniture to help me get established. Judy Sagan, Sandy Delian, so many others, and the wonderful Kathy Weisbrod that we lost, who was always such a generous soul, an extraordinary person who led with kindness and caring as a leader and a person. Which leads me to my next point, which is a tough situation teaches you more than being comfortable. And when I think back to those tough situations, being it losing a loved one or dealing with a difficult boss or customer or having challenging personal interactions, my discomfort usually taught me a life lesson that I could take with me into my next experience. The most difficult bosses I had taught me the kind of leader I wanted to be. And the most difficult clients taught me to be kinder and more patient when dealing with service professionals. And of course, we had some very interesting advertising clients during the day. So one of my favorite anecdotes is we had a gentleman's establishment that used to advertise in classified. And they called us the one day and said, "See where it says the classiest place in KW? Take that out." I said, "Okay, I guess you lost that title somehow, but okay." So these are a few of the things that I picked up during my time at the Record, but life didn't end in 2011. And so I'm going to share a little bit about my journey after the Record, because yes, there is life after the Record, as we all know. I left the Record because I was looking for a new challenge, and I took an entry-level role at Communitech as a program coordinator in their peer-to-peer program, and I was very green, and I knew nothing about tech, but I was curious. And because Communitech is a not-for-profit, it drew very mission-driven people to the organization, and it was a wonderful environment to be in. The discussions we had centered around doing the right thing for members, and everybody pushing a broom. And in my new role, I got to sit in on a lot of peer-to-peers and hear firsthand from our membership about their firms and the challenges that were top of mind, and it was an excellent learning opportunity to dive into the deep end of their value proposition. The learning curve was very steep, but the people were amazing. And for those that knew our previous CEO, Iain Klugman, he could best be described as a character. He's a lovely person, but a very big personality. And at one point, he got wind that I rode my bike into work occasionally. Thanks, Curtis Glode. He got me into riding my bike. So as we were walking towards the bike cages, I'm trying to temper his enthusiasm, and I'm purposely saying, look, I don't ride a great bike into work because I work downtown, and if anything happens to this bike, it won't matter to me. And as we rounded the corner, he said, as long as it's not that yellow piece of shit, it's fine. And that was my bike. And I really feel like I lost an opportunity to have asked for a raise at that point, but I didn't. I also had the opportunity to sit in on some interviews that Iain conducted. And what I learned from that is that he was not afraid to ask anything of a candidate. I once witnessed him ask someone if their mother was proud of them. And when they said yes, he said, "What's your mother's number?" And then he started dialing the number. And that person stayed calm. Now, if that doesn't rattle you, you're a good fit. So that person joined the organization, they got the job, and they stayed several years. So maybe there's something to his technique. Over the next few years, I had a lot of opportunities presented to me when BlackBerry had some of their downturn. Communitech came forward with a program called Tech Jobs Connects, which was to relocate that talent into local firms. And I got to help in that project, but the way I found out about it was I was working away at my desk, and Iain came over with a camera crew and a person with a microphone, and they said, "Hey, we heard you're helping out with this Tech Jobs Connects program," and I had never heard of it. I didn't know what it was. I said, "Sure." And they said, "Tell us about it." And Iain grabbed the microphone and gave a wonderful overview and then filled me in later. But it was that kind of stuff where you had to just kind of roll with the punches and be very flexible. So from there, I got the chance to join what was then our fledgling founder venture services team, building the very first accelerator program. And after 6 months in that role, the department VP left, and we were left without a new VP. But then I got the wonderful Steve McCartney. He joined the organization, and we clicked right away, and he just became a great champion and advocate for me, and he was determined to push me and give me opportunities and help me grow. I count myself very lucky to have worked with him. Which brings me to my next lesson, which is no one makes it all on their own. Your network helps you get your foot in the door, but you have to ensure you walk through that door and keep moving. And you need the support of mentors and friends and coworkers. And there's no question in my mind that I would not have had all the opportunities without that network. Steve showed me the kind of leader I wanted to be. He knew our spouses' names, our kids' names, our hobbies. He cared about us as people. And he was deeply committed to the work we were doing. And most of all, he wanted the people to leave our team stronger than when they joined. And when he left a few years later, the team felt the impact. And I was worried because I'd worked really hard to build my personal brand with him. And so I shared my worries with my mom, and she suggested that I talk to Barb Thomas. For those of you that know Dave Thomas, worked at the Record for years. So Barb was gracious enough to have lunch with me. And she offered some sage advice, which was don't waste a good crisis. And what you're seeing as a crisis is actually an opportunity. You can be seen as an asset within this organization to this new leader. So I ended up working very closely with this new VP. He continually offered me opportunities to grow during the 3 years we worked together. Eventually, I took on an expanded role to determine how we could support scaling firms, and then helped merge our scale-up team and our startup team. Which leads me to our next point, which is this community is very generous. When the previous VP moved on, I was offered the opportunity to become the senior VP, and I hesitated because it was a lot, and I was scared, and I wasn't sure I could manage the scope. It now encompassed membership, startup, scale-up, founder programming, talent, fast-track, health programming, and medtech programming. But after a great deal of thought, I took on the role, and I reached out to my network. And the response I got overwhelmed me. I got so much openness and support from mentors and my former VPs and growth coaches and community leaders, and I continue to be grateful to all those folks. And I'm really happy to report that I've been doing 2 roles since January, but I just hired my new director, so I'm going back to 1 role starting this week, so it's very exciting. And so the last lesson I want to share is to practice gratitude. The most powerful leaders that I worked with were able to function at such a high level because they had resiliency and they could take the punches and roll with it. They remained optimistic and hopeful, and they managed this by being intentional about the gratitude daily. So I try and I calendar daily. Hey, 3 things, write it down, and that means to me stop and think about the 3 things you're grateful for. And someday my list is very, very long, and someday my list is I slept well, and I love my family, and I'm healthy. And off we go. Because our minds are very powerful things, and practicing gratitude helps drive positive emotions, improve our health, improve our relationships. So you've probably noticed a theme here, and that theme is that people are at the center of it all. So look for those with shared values, work to build bridges with them, treasure your friends, value your network, and gatherings like this are important. So thank you for being here tonight. I'm grateful for this opportunity to have spoken to you, and let's have a party.
Thank you, Angela, for that interesting speech and the interesting message behind it.
So thank you very much for coming, and we'll see you next week. And you're welcome to hang around and finish your drinks and chat, so no need to walk away.